take whatever's left over, live off as little as possible, take the leftover and pump it right back in, especially when you find something that has a good acquisition cost.
Which is a great business lesson in general.
Yeah.
Insurance dudes are on a mission to escape being handcuffed by our agencies.
How? By uncovering the secrets to creating a predictable, consistent, and profitable agency sales machine.
I am Craig Pretzinger.
I am Jason Feldman.
We are agents.
We are insurance dudes.
Right now, while it's fresh in your mind, check out live.teledudes.com.
We took our notes from over 100 interviews with top agents from around the country and made it into a live webcast.
Using these strategies led Craig and I to selling more than $10 million in premium in the last 2 years.
On this call, you'll receive the exact blueprint to get the same results.
Just go to live.teledudes.com to register for this upcoming Tuesday's live call with us.
If you jump on this call with us, we're certain 2022 will be an absolutely fantastic year for you.
See you there.
Hey there, Mr. Jason. Hey.
It's a playbook.
Is this playbook number once?
I think so.
That's 11.
I think so.
That's 11 for those of you who were in Mexico last week.
Can I ask you a question?
Do it.
I get this question a lot. How much should an agent spend on marketing?
That is a very good question. And I think that there's a number of different answers. But I think that first you have to understand how much can you afford to spend, and then which marketing source is going to get results. I think that's important. And what are you trying to achieve? So there's a lot of different things. So when somebody comes to me and it says, how much should I spend? It's like, well, you don't know what you want to do yet. I don't know what you want to do. We have to figure out what that is and then work backwards, right? We always talk about start at the goal and then work backwards. And then you can determine based on the different costs of different marketing strategies, which one you can afford. But I think that the answer that we hear from a lot of the mentors that we talk to is you want to spend as much as possible, and then he who spends the most is the one that's going to win, right?
Right. Yes. I would say if you're going to quantify it, so for a PNC agency, I would say the minimum you should, because you know you're going to lose at least 10% of your clients per month, right? So I would say, and that's pretty like averagely good. I would say
averagely good. Depending
averagely
on
good.
The channel, right? I think captive is going to be a little bit lower, and independent you might be a little bit higher.
So I would say at that rate, you have to make it up and you want to exceed it a little bit, right? So I would say, I think one of the best frame of references for that, I would say a minimum of $1,000 per million in premium you have to at least keep moving the needle. Yeah. I don't think that that's going to get you to grow really fast. Right. And I think that's like the minimum that you should spend.
Well,
as a rule
it also
of thumb.
depends on like, okay, we know if you do mailers, right? Let's just take a strategy, right? If you do mailers, you can figure out what the acquisition cost is on mailers by talking to other agents. You know, how much are you spending on mailers? Whatever, 10,000 a month. Okay, how many people did you write? And you could start to get a picture of what the predicted results will be from a marketing. So at least you have a benchmark. And I think that it's important to go into any marketing strategy with a benchmark. You got to have something to be able to measure your results against, and the activity, everything that's happening in whatever funnel you're doing. And you have to be able to make a decision on that based off of some amount of time. You can't just, what happens with a lot of agents, and we see this all the time, and I know that both of us have been in this spot too, where you go into something, you get excited about it. In the first week, you're not getting results and you're like, oh no, I got to change. And that's not a good way to do it. We need to have a good data set in order to make a decision.
Right. But let's just strip the question down to how much should you spend? So if an agent came up to you and asked you how much, give me a dollar amount.
How much can you spend? I mean, I think that we need
nothing,
more information.
because I think that what would an agent say would be like, not much, like hardly anything.
Right. Well, then you're not going to get much results unless you're going to go knock on doors or do it the hard way. Right. I mean, I think that what it needs to be understood is the marketing spend is freeing up all of the time and energy that would be spent doing it like trying to go out and network and do all these other things that take a long time to get any traction, like you're paying to get quicker results, and the better the marketer that you're paying to do it, the better and more quickly those results are going to happen. So when you say how much are you going to spend, well, what are we doing, right? Like I remember when I first started, somebody got me on those shopping, we've talked about it, on the carts at the store, right, at Safeway, and it was a lot. I think it was $5,000 a month. And I mean, how many policies did we write from that?
Right.
The big goose egg, right? We wrote nothing. Like
I would almost
from it.
put that as not like that's not.
Well, it's branding, right? I mean, it's a type of marketing, but it's not.
Yeah, and there is no branding in captive. So like if you're doing captive branding,
No.
I think you've lost your mind.
Right, because the whatever carrier you're with is who's being branded if you're doing branding.
But I would say if you're doing bot leads, and I like the idea of quantifying it. If you do bot leads, like if somebody was buying a book of business or they were starting an agency, well, if they bought a book of business. So I would say, or if you had a current book of business, I would say to keep it going in the background and slightly get over what you're losing from your retention, I would definitely say $1,000 per million in premium. Now, if you wanted to grow more, if you wanted to grow at a good enough pace to where you're building the agency to something that is going to give you an awesome lifestyle, you're going to need to exceed that. But I would say don't spend less than $1,000 per million in premium, because you're going to backslide. And nobody likes to be on that backsliding thing where you're just slowly dying. So I would say be comfortable with at least 1,000 per million. So if you're growing and you're like, okay, I want to get to 9 million or 10 million, like just know when you get to that number or you buy a book of business, I think this is more even applicable when you buy a book of business, is that whatever that number is, like 1,000 per million, be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not like you're going to be doing cross sells and be blowing it out of the water.
Yeah.
It's not realistic.
I think you have to be comfortable with taking the extra. Like if your outcome is to be successful, and if successful means making a lot from that business, you have to be comfortable with not necessarily pulling off fat stacks for yourself in the beginning. It's take whatever's left over, live off as little as possible, take the leftover and pump it right back in, especially when you find something that has a good acquisition cost. Which
is a great business lesson in general.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You don't want to go out and get all flashy and, get all these fancy boats and motorcycles and everything. That's not going to turn into additional revenue.
Right. 100%.
I mean, I used to try to save a ton by not doing the marketing and doing the work. But what I realized is that it doesn't put a multiplier on your efforts. Whereas when you're driving a ton of inbound activity or creating quoting opportunities for the team, you create a multiple on that money, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's a playbook.
That's a playbook. How much should you spend?
At least 1,000 per million, I would say, or whatever the most that you can spend.
The most that you can spend and come out $1 ahead.
Boom.
We'll see you on the next playbook. Hey, what are you still doing here?
Well, while you're still here and while it's fresh in your mind, check out live.teledudes.com.
Yeah, if you weren't listening before, we took notes from over 100 interviews with top agents from around the country and made it into a live webcast.
Using these strategies did help Craig and I write over 10 million in premium in the last couple years.
And let me tell you, on this call, you'll receive the exact blueprint to get the very same results.
Again, that's live.teledudes.com to register for this upcoming Tuesday's live call with us.
And if you jump on with us, we are certain 2022 will be an absolutely fantastic year for you.
See you there.